Good morning, students. In the previous video, I explained about rectilinear propagation of light. Today we'll start with rays and beams. I explained that light always travels in a straight line. And what is it called? It is called as a ray of light. We can denote a ray of light by a straight line with an arrow. This is how we denote a ray of light. A straight line with an arrow. And the direction in which the light is traveling. When many rays collect together, that is called as a beam of light. So what is a beam of light? It is a collection of rays. A ray is a straight the light which travels in a straight line, which can be denoted by a line and an arrow, and beam is a collection of rays. Now we'll move on to shadow. Children, you must have seen your shadow following you everywhere. We have seen shadows of plants, animals, and many other objects. You have also studied that opaque objects do not allow light to pass through them. Now, what happens when light falls on any opaque object? You have learned that light cannot pass through an opaque object. So since light cannot pass through an opaque object, the space behind the object appears dark, and this is called a shadow. So the dark patch formed in the space behind the opaque object where light is partially or fully cut off is called as a shadow. And there are three conditions for the formation of a shadow. And what are those three conditions? There must be a source of light. Okay, any source of light. It can be sunlight, it can be tube, it can be bulb. So there has to be a source of light. There has to be an opaque object to obstruct the path of light. Okay, that means any opaque object, only opaque object forms proper shadow. So it has to obstruct the path of light. Obstruct the path of light means between the light there should be a opaque object. And there has to be a screen on which the shadow can be formed. Because shadow cannot be formed in the air, there has to be a screen. Like you must have seen the shadows forming on the road or on the ground, or when you are in your rooms, the shadow is formed on the walls. So that is a screen on which the shadow can be formed. So if you have to study the formation of a shadow, you can take a torch, a black paper, a ball, and you have to cover the front glass of the torch with a black paper, and you have to make a very small hole in the center of this black paper. So this will give you the source of the light. This is the source of the light. From where? From the torch. And then in a dark room, switch on the torch and point it towards the wall. This is the wall, and you have to point it towards the wall. In between, you have to place a ball or any other thing which can obstruct this light. Then what you have to do, you have to move the ball towards and away from the torch. What will happen? First of all, when you place the ball in front of the torch, what do you get? You get its shadow. Shadow is obtained on the wall. So this is the shadow of the ball. When the ball was moved towards the torch, you move the ball towards the torch. What will happen? As you move the object closer to the source of the light, the size of the shadow increases. Okay, जैसे जैसे पास में जाएगा, the size of the shadow increases, and when you move away from the source of the light, what happens? The size of the shadow decreases. Clear? So, and you will always notice, children, that does a shadow has any color? No, the shadow does not have any color. Okay, they can never be colorful. Shadow is always black in color, and the length and the direction changes. the shadow, the length of the shadow and the direction of the shadow changes. Why? Because the position of the sun keeps on changing during the day. So the formation of shadow is because of rectilinear propagation of light. And as I told you, an opaque object casts a very dark shadow. Translucent object will form a very weak shadow, and a transparent object will do not cast any shadow. What is the reason? Because transparent objects always allow light to pass through them. So until and unless the light is obstructed, shadow cannot be formed. So transparent objects will never cast any shadow. A dark shadow is cast only by the opaque object. Now, a point source of light produces a shadow of total darkness. Okay, so where the region of total darkness, that is where there is no light, that is called as umbra. This is umbra is the region of total darkness, and there is another region which is called as penumbra. This region is partial darkness surrounding the umbra. That means here some light is reaching this area. In this region, some part of the light is reaching. So this is called as penumbra region. And where there is total darkness, that is called as the umbra. Okay. And then the nature and shape of a shadow. The nature and shape of a shadow depends on three things. First is the shape of the object. What is the shape of the object? Okay, whether it is very small, whether it is in longitudinal way or in horizontal way. Okay, the size of the source of the light. What is the size of the source? Whether it is a very small source of light or whether it is a very big source of light, and the position of the source of light and the distance between the source of light and object. Just now, as I explained you, as you move closer to the source of the light, the size of the shadow increases, and when you move away from the source of light, the size of the shadow decreases. So these are the 3 points on which the nature and shape of the shadow depends. I hope, children, that this much is clear to all of you. The rest will continue in the next video. Thank you, children.